What's up, everybody? Thank you again for joining me on a Supplement Sunderday, a day of the week we have made up where we're getting together to go over a supplement that I have learned about during the week and how these supplements can really be a game changer for our health picture in a natural, plant-based manner. And all the things I was never taught in pharmacy school. So let's just get into it today. What are we talking about? We are talking about TREHALOSE. Have you heard of this one, TREHALOSE? This is fairly new to me, and it has been a much larger learning curve than I thought it would be, because my initial thought on this TREHALOSE is that it was a sweetener, okay? So something like stevia. And yes, that is part of the picture, but there is so much more to this TREHALOSE that really has spiked my interest, and I want to share what I have learned. So let's get into it. What is it? Well, I already said it is a sweetener. Yes, it is a plant-based sweetener. So in fact, it is a natural sugar disaccharide. So it's made up of 2 glucose molecules. And what's fascinating about this, it's synthesized by some different plants, by different bacteria, by different fungi, and even some animal sources. All right, now let's get into how this thing works. So here's where it gets really fun. So buckle up. First thing, this has been found to induce autography. Now, autography we've talked about in the past. What it means is it basically cleans out defective and mutated cells from our body. It keeps things new and gets the old stuff flushed out. Now, this autography and getting rid of these damaged cells has so much to do with keeping us healthy when it comes to things like warding off metabolic syndrome or brain damage or cancer, aging, and infections, just to name a few things. So autography is a pretty big deal. Second thing, it combats free radical damage and oxidative stress, the damage of oxidative stress, which we talk about almost every week. Third thing, it binds water and moisture, okay? So it acts as a hydration component. And by retaining moisture, that really opens up what this thing can be used for. Fourth thing, it blocks glucose from getting into our liver. And it does this by activating a gene in our system. And this gene mimics the effects of fasting. And we know that fasting is beneficial in our bodies for things like insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. But even more than that, it can trigger a calorie burn and it can decrease fat and cholesterol levels in our blood. Now, let's get into the fun fact. So this is pretty cool. So I read that this TREHALOSE is the magic or the secret weapon in a plant called the resurrection plant. Now, what makes this plant really unique is it can retain moisture in its system enough to keep it alive during a drought that can last for months. So again, this kind of relates back to how this TREHALOSE binds water and retains moisture. All right, now let's get into what this thing does. Well, again, because it retains moisture, this has been shown in a topical application to be used in eye drops for dry eye syndrome. And in fact, in 4 different clinical trials, it was shown to be more effective for the symptomatic relief of dry eyes than the standard eye drops that we currently use in the marketplace. Second thing, brain and nerve health. And this again has to do with this autography and moving out defective and mutated cells from our system. So things that are protective against Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease. And that also ties into decreased levels of inflammation. And I know you're already saying it because you know I'm asking it. That's why inflammation is so crucial to keep it down in our bodies. It also increases levels of protective proteins in our bodies, and it decreases levels of protein mutations. And here's something directly tied into this, ALS. There's research being done on ALS where this TREHALOSE is used, and it has slowed disease progression of ALS when they have done this study in animals. Third thing, and another huge thing when it has to do with our health picture, diabetes and blood sugar stability. So TREHALOSE has been shown to decrease insulin resistance and to decrease insulin spikes. Now, It has been a mixed bag because right away I thought, okay, this has everything to do with a glycemic index. However, there are mixed results when it came to this. Some showed that yes, it did have a decreased glycemic index in our systems, and others showed it rode this borderline level. There were actually study results published in 2020 where there was an in-depth study done on actual patients, real people, where they gave these folks a teaspoon of TREHALOSE a day. And it did show that these folks had an improved glucose tolerance by reducing their postprandial, meaning after a meal, postprandial hyperglycemia. So it did not spike blood sugars. In essence, that's what that means. And they also repeated part of this study where they decreased the dose of TREHALOSE to 1/3 of a teaspoon and they got the same results. Okay, let's move on. Heart disease and fatty liver disease. And again, this has everything to do with this autography and moving out damaged and mutated cells from our system. And it's also shown, like I said before, that it blocks transporting glucose into the liver. Next thing, stomach protection. Now this is pretty fascinating. And of course, being a pharmacist, we have a lot of folks that are on aspirin, whether it be low dose aspirin or just a regular strength aspirin on a daily basis to help prevent heart disease, right? But we also know that aspirin is tough on your tummy. It can give people ulcers, give stomach upset, all those types of things. So scientists have come up where they have paired TREHALOSE with aspirin and the stomach lining is protected and the ulcer risk also plummeted. And the sixth thing, UV protection on our skin. Now this is a big one because I was reading that this was used in cosmetics and I could not figure out why. This is why. Again, autography, and it's been shown to protect healthy cells against this UV damage from the sun. And that is why this is pretty fascinating to me to see how this takes off in the future when it comes to an ingredient in sunscreens and in different cosmetic purposes. All right, now let's get into some precautions. Well, you've probably figured out this is a pretty new on the scene thing when it comes to all this other research and what this TREHALOSE does, other than just being a convenient plant-based sweetener. So when it comes to the studies that have been done, yes, it is safe and effective even in pregnancy, breastfeeding, and children. There is no risk involved when we talk about using it in the simple fact of being a sweetener or as a food additive. And this food additive, think about this. When you have an ingredient that retains moisture and hydration, this is becoming more prevalent in things like packaged foods, prepackaged foods, dehydrated foods, frozen foods, instant foods, baked goods, and even sugary things that would be a coating or a filling. Now, all things that I don't recommend we make as staple foods in our diet, but this TREHALOSE is being used for those properties. Now, another precaution, well, so far none of this has really been a precaution, but one precaution that I did read upon that is not as encouraging, there might be some correlation with this TREHALOSE feeding a C. diff infection. So if you are infection prone when it comes to hospital acquired bacteria, this could be a problem. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. And again, as this research continues, that will really show its true colors, whether that's a related incident or not. And another thing, this TREHALOSE, of course, in our system needs an enzyme to break it down. The enzyme is called trehalase. If you don't have trehalase in your system, then you're not breaking down this TREHALOSE. So in foods that it's found naturally in, things like shrimp or mushrooms, to be a couple big examples, you may have some digestion issues taking anything where this TREHALOSE has also been added. One more thing though, when it ties into gut health. I have talked about a probiotic yeast called S. boulardii. Well, this S. boulardii, which is a good gut yeast that we want growing in our system, releases trehalase, the enzyme that breaks down the TREHALOSE. And again, this S. boulardii can increase the prevalence of that enzyme by up to 45%. So again, having a healthy gut has everything to do with everything. All right, now let's get to the best part. Let's talk about a little Plexus. So there is one product and one product only that I could find this TREHALOSE in, and it happens to be the active. And here is the active. So the active is Plexus's answer to an energy drink, a clean, effective energy drink. Now, trehalose is used in this as a sweetener, okay? In the other Plexus products where a sweetener would be needed, stevia seems to be the most prevalent. But again, trehalose, I think, is pretty new on the scene. So if you need a great energy drink that is a great pre and post workout drink, a clean sourced product, it comes in 3 delightful flavors. Active is your answer. All right, you guys, that wraps up another Supplement Sunday on kind of a newer ingredient that I was fascinated by and really learned a lot. If you are not on the Plexus train yet and are intrigued by all these ingredients I'm talking about each week and want to learn more and want to get healthy, please take a peek at my website below and reach out to me. I'd love to help you get healthy. And second of all, the active video that I have done in the past that goes over all the ingredients and what they do and why they're so helpful for our body, that is also linked in the description box, so take a peek. And thanks again for joining me on a Supplement Sunday, and cheers to your health and happiness.